Welcome everybody here tonight for our regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, Blaine County School District number 61 on this Tuesday, October 14th at 6 p.m. We do have a quorum present, Trustee Baker, Trustee Graves, myself, Trustee Benyon, and our Superintendent, Gwen Carroll Holmes, is here. And we would also like to recognize sitting with us at the board table our Student Board Representative, Nikki Penrose. She will be joining us up at the board table for the next couple of months, and then we'll be rotating through. And Asia Pettingale, one of our other liaisons currently, student board liaisons, is here in attendance with us, and we'd like to welcome her. With that, we'll go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please stand and join with me.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and just as a quick review, we are changing our agenda slightly, and we're trying something new. We're trying to give the public a chance to see the presentations. Here's some of the deliberation that the board will make, and then make comments to us. So we do have a public comment period, but it will be later on in the agenda after the presentations. But with that, Lori, are there any changes, modifications, corrections, substitutions to the current agenda?
There are none.
Excellent. With that, I will go ahead and turn the time over to Dr. Holmes for the accolades.
Okay, we have two accolades tonight, and our first one is for the Hemingway team. So I'm not quite sure who all we have from the Hemingway team, but if we have anyone, would they please stand? There's you. This really goes to AT, because this letter says, Dear Board of Trustees and Dr. Holmes, I'm writing today to express my deep gratitude for my son's team at Hemingway Elementary School. My son Jacob has many health concerns, including severe and life-threatening food allergies. Jacob began kindergarten this year at Hemingway. My husband and I could not be any more pleased with how things are going. The road to meeting Jacob's needs this year was begun last spring with Becky Tinsley, social worker, and Kathy Goulet, nurse, when we went to discuss his needs. The plan continued this year with this official 504 team, including Kirsten Flavin, Becky Tinsley, Linda Lubeck, and Dawn Hazley. Through the work of Jacob's team, a solid foundation was laid for keeping Jacob safe at school and on the school bus. His team went beyond that by finding strategies for including Jacob into his new learning community despite his health concerns. Sending Jacob off to school each day has been a pleasure. He loves kindergarten, and clearly kindergarten loves him right back. In the words of his bus driver, Corey Alt, you never need to worry about Jacob. We keep him very safe. This couldn't be more true. A 504 plan is only as helpful as the people who are implementing it. And I can tell you, we are so blessed. Sincerely, Kelly Choma, parent liaison, and Jacob's mom. So thank you to the Hemingway team. Our next accolade is for another Hemingway teacher, and this is for Scott Slonim. Scott, would you please stand? Or Mr. Battle of Blades, as we might also call him. Mr. Scott Slonim is passionate about the youth in our valley. He always goes the extra mile to help out kids. He did just that this past weekend. We drove all the way to Stanley, Idaho to help my Girl Scout troop, or he drove all the way to Stanley, Idaho to help my Girl Scout troop erect and dedicate a Bluebird Trail in memory of Nolan Kriskowski. A Wood River Middle School student who died in a snowmobiling accident last February. We put up over 40 bluebird houses to help the Idaho state bird, the mountain bluebird, with their nesting habitat and to help ensure that they never become endangered. Mr. Sloan's never-ending enthusiasm is contagious, and made the day a joyous celebration of a fine young man. So thank you for all you do for your students and for our children on the weekends. Thank you. Is for Brian Sturgis.
He couldn't be here tonight.
Okay.
He wished he could.
Okay. This is written to his principal, Fritz Peters. It says, "Dear Fritz, I wanted to let you know that what an incredible teacher you have working for you at Wood River Middle School. Mr. Brian Sturgis donated many hours of his time to help my Girl Scout troop with their Bluebird Trail, which was dedicated in Nolan's memory. He educated us last May and then drove all the way to Stanley last weekend to help us get the trail erected in the right spot. We had about 40 people attend the event and put up over 40 houses. We appreciated his time and expertise, and it would not have been as successful without his help. He was so great with young and old. I know he has had many personal losses as well for him. To reach out and give Nolan's friends and family was amazing. Our last Nolan Trail will be put up this Friday after school's out in Greenhorn Gulch. Thank you, Leslie Belton."
All right. I would like to thank our amazing staff and congratulate them on their recognition. And really like to thank those who took the time to write those letters of accolade or letters of recognition. It means a lot. We appreciate it. So with that, we'll move on and turn the time over to Bellevue Elementary for their presentation.
So I have a group here. So I'm going to invite our group in. It is a collection of teachers from across the grade levels in different roles within the school, as well as some students across the grade levels. And what they're going to highlight for us is something new that we've put into place this year, because we recognize that we, after our years of transition last year, that we needed to come back together and get reconnected as a school community and make some dedicated time to build that work within our school day and with our students and our staff. So we are going to mimic something that we will actually model for you, the way we start our day every day at school. We call this our Connections Circle, with a variety of different activities that we do throughout the year. So they're going to come in and they're going to sit right here on the floor. So it might be kind of hard to see them, but they will all have lots to say as they go along. So come on in, crew.
Okay, so we're going to start our connection circle by tossing around some string. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to do that, and Miss Beth is then going to tell you what we're going to do while we do that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to toss the string to the first person, but I'm going to hang on to my string when I toss it, okay, and not let go. So I'm going to hang on to my string when I throw it and then toss it to the next person. And we're going to toss gently, aren't we? Yeah. So we're going to toss it gently to the next person and hang on to our piece.
And while you're holding the string, I want everybody to think about something that makes them unique. Remember, we talked about what unique is, and we came up with all different words for unique. So when you have your string, I want you to say, I am unique because.
Are you guys ready?
I am unique because I am patient.
I am unique because I am a good listener.
I am unique because I have lots of creative ideas.
I'm unique. I'm unique because I'm a good listener and a good wiggler. I am unique because I like to ice skate.
Say why you're unique.
I'm unique because I play soccer. I'm unique because I horseback ride.
I am unique because I'm a twin. Apparently not as and I'm unique because I understand people's feelings.
I am unique because I help to make connection with kids.
And I am unique because I love to teach. So boys and girls, I want you all to look at our shape. Did we make a shape with our string? Are we all connected together? Now I want you to think about if one person let go, what would happen to our shape? What would happen? What would happen?
It would change a different shape.
It would change it, wouldn't it? That's right. And so at Bellevue, we're all connected together as a family. And because we're connected together, we work together and we can hold each other up and we can be stronger and we can be better. But when one person is missing from our connection, it changes the shape of us because we're all important. Thank you.
So there was going to be a slide happening in the back, but it didn't automatically go. So that kind of walks through pictures so you can see that happening in our classrooms. We start the beginning of our week every week, whatever the first day is, with the connections as well with the entire school. Setting the tone for the week, checking in and celebrating any of the great things that we've had either come up through the course of the week or celebrating anything that kids have had in their individual lives over the week as well. So really coming back to that emphasis on how do we continue to come back together as a school family, help students feel that emotional and social emotional component that we know is such a big piece to their academic learning that helps them be ready for that academic learning every day in their lives. So in that, our celebration from last year is that in a year of transition, with a lot of things going on in our school, we continued to make the gains that we had always made in the past, as well as increased our gains and for our students performing in the top 20th percentile. So we celebrated those great victories as well as all of the other great things that we now get to do with our time. So, any questions?
Go ahead and open it up to the board for any questions or comments.
No, great exercise. I enjoyed getting to see that and seeing one of your teachers, Chandy, lead that group. So that was really nice. Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things we do with this is we have all staff part of, so every single staff member across the school is part of a connection. So it's not just classroom teachers. We have all of our para support, all of our office support, with the exception of our secretary who has to be there. And I'm trying to trade off with her so that she can get to see it because it's such a great piece. And then custodians, Johnny has been a big piece in helping us put some of this stuff together and do a lot of our work. So it's been a really big school movement. So.
Excellent. That's great to help teach the kids how everything ties together and to support each other.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will move forward with the superintendent's report to the board.
Okay, part of the
commitment, or one of the goals that the board set for themselves this year, was to have data in the boardroom. So I'm trying my best to bring you data every month. So I have 3 different data reports for tonight. The first one is on the Idaho Reading Indicator, or the IRI. This is an assessment that is required by the state for students in K through 3rd. It's given in the fall and then again in the spring. And it assesses how well they are able to decode words and how fluently they are able to read. It's hard for me as a former reading teacher to call it a reading test because it does not measure comprehension. But those are important skills in being able to quickly decode words and fluently read, because then it frees up bandwidth, so to speak, in your brain, so you can start thinking about the comprehension of the text instead of spending all your time trying to figure out what the words are. There are benchmarks for each time the test is given that students hopefully will meet to show that they are making progress sufficiently. So it's not like a proficiency type of assessment, or it's not like a normal curve equivalent type of thing. It is a test that actually has a benchmark, and kids either hit it or do not. We have very mixed results when we look at them over the scores over the last 3 years. And I do have to, at this point, say thank you to John Blackman, because we've been looking at a lot of data together in our district leadership team. And everybody's done their part in pulling data. So what I'm reporting to you tonight is the data that John drew the short straw for and had to pull that piece of data. We did notice some things in our patterns, though. One of them is that the kindergarten intervention last year at Woodside, now Alturas, and Hemingway seemed to make a remarkable difference. And so we have made sure that intervention from Imagine Learning has been purchased for all of our schools this year to use in kindergarten. We're also making sure that our teachers are aware of the supports that are in our new English language arts adoption around decoding and fluency, so that they know what tools they have available to use for this. We're also looking at primary reading instruction, just see what the practices are. Are there any things there that we could improve? And then the other piece on this, as we look at these scores, because they are very mixed results, we have a good number of kids that are not making the benchmarks. The other thing is, what do our reading scores say for us when kids actually hit 3rd grade and are starting to be assessed on their reading as far as the comprehension piece, as well as just being able to call the words accurately? That's a little bit of a puzzle, too, because as you know, in the state of Idaho, we haven't had a state assessment for over a year now, because last year it was a field test. But if you go back to 11-12 and 12-13 to our 3rd grade ISAT scores and our 4th grade ISAT scores, you'll see that overall our students are about at 89% of them are reaching proficiency. So it is a much stronger indicator than these IRI scores. Hispanic students then are, for 3rd grade, we're scoring at about 81% or 78%, depending on the year, but hovering right there around 80% of the kids being proficient. When you look at 4th grade, does this carry forward? All students are scoring about proficient at about 83% both years, and the Hispanic students around 71%, 70.6 one year and 72.2 another year. So that's another indicator to us of how our students are doing in reading. There's obviously room for growth, but we do have some strong scores as far as state reading scores and how you compare us to the rest of the state. The next data piece that I'm bringing you is what's called the IELA, or the Idaho English Language Arts Language Assessment, excuse me. It is given to students who are acquiring English, and I have to give a thank you to Marcia for pulling this data. This was the short straw she drew in our data examination. And when you assess students with this, you're looking to see how they are acquiring English in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. The table is maybe a little bit more complicated than normal to understand, because it's not a normal way of presenting data. But if you look at the charts in there, like at the table up there at the top, for example, the columns going down are how the students scored in 2012-13. The rows going across are how they scored in 13-14. So if you go to the column 1 going down, or going up, I guess you could say, in that year, in this cohort, and we're using cohorts of students that remain the same from one year to the other, so sometimes that reduces your numbers a little bit. But in that cohort, there were 7 students who started off the 12-13 year scoring as a 1, or were scored as a 1 in that year. In the following year, a year later, one of those students had progressed to a level 2, 4 of those students had progressed to a level 3, and 2 of them had progressed to a level 4. So you show that all of them made some growth in acquiring English and learning English. Then at the bottom of that same page, you'll see, just for scooting it back another year to see if the patterns are still the same. We see good growth for our students who are moving from 1 to 2 and from 2 to 3. We see less growth for our students who are moving from 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. That is a national pattern. That is a statewide pattern. However, it's not a pattern that we're going to be happy with, so we're going to change that pattern, because when students are moving from 1, 2, and 3 in the English language acquisition assessment, they're basically learning conversational English, or in the school world, we might call it playground English. They're learning to navigate the hallways, the restrooms, the lunchroom, the playground, those kinds of things. When they move from a 3 to a 4 or a 4 to a 5, they're acquiring academic English. They're learning the language of the disciplines, to speak like a chemist, to speak like a mathematician, to speak like an archaeologist, or whatever the disciplines are that they are studying. And it is a much harder move to make, but that is where we are focusing our efforts in our individual school improvement plans this year and in our district improvement plan, because that is where we are getting the worst results, if I could say that, when we look at our state data. Some of the things that we are doing for that is, as a district, we have a cohort of 80 folks, half from the secondary level, half from the elementary level, who this year will begin learning about WIDA standards. These are standards that are used in about 40 states now for English language acquisition. And so they're learning how to incorporate language instruction into all of the discipline areas. We have content teachers and English language teachers who are co-teaching together for the first time this year. We've just got a 3-year grant that will help us explore that. And just the fact that our content teachers are now very much aware of the fact that we've been having these conversations. I was at the high school the other day at Wood River High School, and the principal handed me a list of all of his students in the building who are 3s and 4s. So they're very consciously aware of who these students are. They know them by name. The teachers know, oh, I've got one sitting in my class. This is one that I'm going to need to pay attention to and make sure that I am helping them with the language of the discipline. So that awareness, I think, will also help us improve. The last piece of data that I brought you tonight is the staff engagement surveys. These were given last May, and they are a reflection of staff engagement at point in time. All assessments are a point in time. So this is a reflection of the staff's point of where they were in May of 2014. We have district-wide results. It was rolled up into a district-wide report, and we have individual school reports. And these will be on our website as of tomorrow, unless it is a department or a school of 10 or less, and then it won't be posted because of the ability to identify individual respondents. There's some things that our staff tell us that we are very proud of. Is they are very proud to work for Blaine County School District. That was an overwhelming response of how proud they are to work for the school district. And they're proud to be in education, whether they're working in the technology department, in the transportation department. All of the departments expressed great pride in working in education. They realize the work that they do is touching future. And they also like the recognition for accomplishments, and most of them feel like they are recognized for accomplishments. Areas for improvement is there's not the trust in the district office that there needs to be. So we need our staff district-wide to have better trust in the district office. there is a lack of empowerment sometimes expressed by some of the teachers, or a lack of feeling like they're working in a team or understanding the power of team. They also expressed to us that they're not sure that the district leadership has a clear vision for where we're going. So we're going to talk about what we're going to do about that later tonight. That's on the agenda. And they're not always understanding the why of decisions. So the sense-making opportunities of helping people understand the why and having ongoing conversations about why we're doing things has been lacking, or so they're telling us. So as a district leadership team, which includes both the cabinet and school principals, we have looked at this. We have talked about some of the possible root causes and identified different ways that we can move forward on helping to build trust, helping to empower our staff, and to better communicate. And so you'll hopefully be seeing more and more of that happening. Just a few little things that we've done already. One of them was just the warm welcome back to school and making sure we recognized every individual that works in the district, and so that they know we know they're there, and we know that we couldn't do it without them. Including teachers in our district leadership team meeting when we were looking at our district data and identifying what we needed to do as a district. So it wasn't just administrators, we had teachers at the table. So those are some of the kinds of things that we're doing. And that concludes my lengthy report.
Are there any questions from the board? Trustee Baker.
Yes, you talked about trends or patterns in, can't remember the acronym, IELA?
Yeah, IELA.
IELA, yeah, but what are how does that compare to the IRI trends? Because I know that you made reference to some areas where we had some decreases. Is that a trend that's typical in the state, or is that unique to Blaine County?
Oh, how does IRI compare to the rest of the state? I honestly don't know. That's something I'd have to check on it and let you know. I can tell you nationwide, not every state uses the IRI. Some states use the PALS, some states use the DIBELS, but they're all the same kind of measures. And they are oftentimes pretty poor in the results on those.
I'm just kind of referring to the dip in first grade that we're seeing. And
first grade is pretty flat.
Pardon me?
First grade is pretty flat. There's not much gain happening in first grade.
Or there's lack of gain.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious because you made a reference to trend, if we had any trending data for that.
I could do some more checking. Do you have anything, Angie, that you would add on that? Or?
I actually have it. I just need to look it up. I have the state compared to us at each grade level. And then the first grade assessment in fall. The first grade assessment in the fall is letter or sound recognition, sound fluency. And then we actually ask them to read on the spring assessment.
Okay.
So it's a different skill that we're measuring. But we still want to make sure that the scores, what we're trying to hit at the end of the year is being able to read in context. So we want those scores to be higher than just the sound naming. But that is, and it is a statewide trend to see that fall score go down in the spring because we're not measuring the same thing.
Okay. I did think that possibly it was a statewide trend. That's why I asked the question. Okay, thank you.
I just want to add on to that, though, that we have to be very careful to remember that these tests are benchmarked. And so that is where we expect kids to be at those different levels. So we obviously expect a kindergartner who's coming in to be at a lower level than a kindergartner who's exiting, a first grader who's coming in to be at a lower level than a first grader who's exiting, type of thing. So they are benchmarks that we're hoping to hit.
John had something to add.
I would just say we have longitudinal data back 6 years that I was looking at, and one thing that we noticed as a group is that there were a couple of programmings that we put in a couple schools that really impacted the data. So there was a noticeable increase, and we were able to pinpoint the programming that created that. So it gave us a way to measure the success and be strategic about the programming that we use or look at in order to increase those scores. So that was a nice piece of data to see.
In fact, if you look on your check report for tonight, you'll see that company got a nice check from us because we're making sure that program is in all of our schools instead of just 2 of them like it was previously.
Yeah, you made reference to that.
Imagine Learning.
Imagine Learning, and I do appreciate the fact that we're taking the data, figuring out what's working, and applying that to other situations, because I think that's really important. So I'm glad to hear that we're looking at that in that way.
I just want to add one more thing, because these conversations always scare me a little bit, because we're talking about decoding and fluency and kids not hitting benchmarks, and I don't want this pendulum piece that happens sometimes in education to happen, because the most important thing about reading, in fact, like I said, the reading teacher in me can hardly say the word reading without pairing it with comprehension, because to me, you're just calling words if you don't have the comprehension.
Right.
And sometimes we work really hard on comprehension, so we lose the fluency piece, or sometimes we work really hard on fluency and decoding, and we lose the comprehension piece. So even though we're talking about assessments that measure just half of the act, I don't want to be perceived in any way that we're not worrying about comprehension, which is part of the reason why I went then to the ISAT scores, even though they're a little bit dated at this point, to see, okay, so when they get to 3rd grade, are they getting the comprehension piece? And a good 80% of them are.
Good.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. I appreciate you helping us with our goals of bringing more data into the boardroom and all sorts of different types. So.
Have the results you want then?
Sure.
I can put my report on that. Okay, for the 2014 IRI, our kindergarten students, we had 80% proficiency, and the state was 78. First grade, we had 52% proficient as a benchmark at 3, and the state was 49. Second grade, 67 hit proficient versus 62 for the state, and third grade, we had 74% versus 70% for the state.
Okay.
So pretty equivalent.
Thank you for finding that so quickly, Angie.
All right. I guess it's my turn for the board chair report. And since our last board meeting, I was able to go down to Jerome to the Region 4 ISBA, Idaho School Boards Association region meeting. And Karen Echeverria, the executive director of ISBA, was in attendance. And it was a great opportunity to meet with other board members in our region, as well as meet with some of the legislatures, senators, House representative in our regions to get their take on what's upcoming legislation. And the resolutions that are going to be in front of the Idaho School Boards Association at the upcoming business meeting at the convention in November. Right now, there's 12 resolutions proposed, and each one comes with a pass, do not pass recommendation from the executive board of the Idaho State School Boards Association. And it was, some of these are really no-brainers. Some of them are up for quite a bit of controversy discussion. And it was very apparent as far as which ones were the most impactful. I think one of the most telling things that I came away from the meeting is that all schools are struggling to hire. Right now, there is a shortage of qualified teachers. And that has me a little nervous. It really does. 40% of our staff is eligible for retirement within the next 5 years, which is a huge amount of staff. And we don't want to just be stealing from our other surrounding districts and creating a big divide. And so that really has me curious on how the HR department is going to advertise and recruit highly qualified teachers.
We have some strategic ideas.
Excellent.
Excellent. One of One of the things that we're looking at currently, because you bring up some points that I've seen coming for a while. And just last year, we had 23 retirements in the district, which is exactly 10% of the staff, and that does not include people who relocated and left for other areas, so you can throw another 10 folks on top of that. So roughly 15% of our staff was turned over last year in 1 year. We're looking at seeing that trend continue over the next 5 years. So, and the pools out there are slim. Idaho's a tough state to recruit into from out of state. For obvious reasons, in funding and education. And, you know, what we would like to look at is where our trends are going to be. In other words, I'm putting together a chart right now of where our retirements are going to come in the next few years and what levels those are at or what subject areas they're in, so that we can be proactive about going out and recruiting in those areas as we speak.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And I would just like to encourage the board to go over these resolutions, if you haven't done so already, before the convention that we're going to be attending in November. If you have any questions, feel free to contact.
I just had a comment thinking back about our pool of applicants on positions that was discussed a lot, I know, at negotiations this year. And I think one of the things administration found at that time was that we are very fortunate because we have the ability to pay our teachers compared to the rest of the state very well. And so a lot of those pains that other places have incurred have not happened here because of that, and that we're still able to really attract people. And I just hope that trend does continue.
Well, one of the problems we're having in that trending is the fact that we have one of the highest educated staffs in Idaho, so most of our staff fall fairly high on our salary schedule. But we're going to need to recruit younger teachers and attract them to the state. We've been able to attract teachers who are in that mid-range, but they're retiring from other districts as well. So we're having to go out and make sure that we're recruiting those young teachers. And right now the problem is the bottom end of our schedule doesn't equate to the top end. So if you bring in teachers in that have years of experience, 10 years or better, easier to recruit. If you're out there trying to get people into Idaho, and you're paying maybe 20%, above the state scale, and you have a cost of living that's 30 to 40% higher, then, those are problems. The cost of living here, the housing costs here, they're starting to go back up, and that's going to create some problems. If you're making wages in Twin Falls, you're closer to home ownership than you are in Blaine County.
All right, thank you. And then this is a long time coming, but we had our retreat back in July, August, yeah. And we should have reported on this a little sooner, but these are some of the goals that we as a Board of Trustees came out with as far as data decision making, and that we appreciate Dr. Holmes helping us out with that as far as bringing more data into the boardroom, taking a look and seeing which program is actually helping and helping our kids to further their education, and then utilizing that more fully. So we really appreciate staff assisting us with this. And a lot of these goals, as you can see, were more short-term for this year, what we've wanted to accomplish. And as we go down through, we're well on our way on a great deal of those. We have our financial committee put together, and tonight we're going to be doing C on that and giving the financial committee some more guidance, clarification on what we'd like them to focus on this next year, and having them report back to the board. We're also trying to establish a process for not just the financial committee, but all board-driven committees that we are utilizing to advise us, making sure that they're following the open meeting laws, having agendas posted, minutes, and then reporting to the board when needed. The laws have changed slightly in Idaho, and as part of the superintendent's evaluation, there are different things that we're going to be needing to do. And at the Idaho State School Boards Association conference, we've all signed up for the early bird session to be able to be trained on their tool that they are recommending that we use. So we're well on our way with that as well. Have a plan to accomplish that. And we're going to be discussing our policy revisions a little bit later tonight, as well as our meeting agenda. Some of these came from recommendations from the Idaho State School Boards Association from the training that we received at that point in time when we had our retreat and the facilitator was there. And it was a very productive couple of days for us to really nail down on, okay, we've had this retreat, now how are we going to change what we're doing in order to streamline, in order to focus more on our students, more on the numbers, how can we help our students? And that really is our main critical goal this year, is focusing on the students. What can we do as a board that will make an impact in our students' lives? That was a recurring theme from the welcome breakfast with staff, and I really appreciate that. So, any comments from the board on our goals or the retreat?
I guess the only comment that I made, these are our board goals, and we also did start to put together some district goals at the retreat. And are we going to be sharing those in November, December?
I know that you were going to be reporting on your 100 days listening tour in November, and we can definitely get that on the agenda for November or December as well.
Okay.
So, all right. As far as announcements go, we have a wellness committee meeting on October 20th at 4 p.m. at the community campus. We have our financial committee meeting on October 21st at 4 p.m. at the district office. And with that, a couple of days after we, actually 2 days, one day after we appointed our representative, each board member was able to appoint a representative to the financial committee. The day after we appointed that, we sent out the emails to let them know they were appointed and confirmed. We received a response back from Kim Bryson that she has since changed jobs and would not have the time to dedicate fully to the financial committee at this time. So she resigned from the committee at that point in time, and that fell on Trustee Baker to be able to choose and appoint someone. Trustee Baker.
Sure, I just want to speak to that briefly. Just to move back, we confirmed with all the candidates, like days before, if they were still interested in being on the financial committee, in which all of them said yes. So that was a big shock after that appointment, the resignation. And so we went back to our policy to look at how that process worked. And so the trustee that appointed that position was responsible for appointing someone else. And at that point in an appointment process, each trustee can pick whoever they want at that point. So what I did, rather than just going out and trying to solicit to the community, we had received one other person who was interested in being on the committee. They had not met the original deadline, so they were not in consideration when we made our initial round of appointments. But that person had been interested, and so I selected that person, and that person is John Geddard. And so he became appointed effective that day and has already participated in a meeting. And part of that was not wanting to hinder the process of the committee moving forward, since we did have a person in the pool, to get it moving at a full full appointment.
Representation.
Yeah, full representation. Thank you, Sean.
What's that? He did. Oh, I think Trustee Baker did mention that he did fill out an application.
Yeah.
It,
And you declared.
but he did not get that quite in on time. It was a couple days late. That's why he was not considered for the first round of appointments. But an application was filled out.
Yes, it was.
All right. We also have a optional board work session on the October 23rd scheduled, and I was going to check with the board. I know last month we had discussed possibly utilizing this for a governance model discussion, work session. At that point in time, I know Rick said he had conflicts of time, and I thought I remember that Trustee Schwartle had possible conflicts of time, whether or not they were going to be in the valley at that point in time. That's open up for discussion. Do we want to have that now, as we will be a 4-member board again, or do we want to postpone until we're possibly a full board again?
I'm not sure if Trustee Schwartle can make it or not.
Okay.
I guess I would like to find out if she's going to be here. So if we can just table this, I don't know when we would need to post this.
A work session would be 24 hours ahead.
So I guess I would like to table it until we find out. If she's not going to be here, I don't think it's worth it for the 3 of us
Granted.
No.
to be there. But if she is going to be there, because it could potentially not be until January, until
It
we
would
have
likely
a new.
not be until January.
Yeah.
So
Do
I guess that would be my.
we have a plan for that discussion in place already of what that would look like?
There was the possibility of that book that you might read and use that as a jumping off point. I don't know what their decision is on that.
I'm the only one that has read through that book.
Mhm.
So I think if we can just have a couple days to make that decision,
Okay.
and maybe.
Yeah, I mean, because at this point, even if Schwartle would be here, if we
Pretty
didn't.
fast read.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
if
Right.
we're not prepared to have that discussion in 2 weeks.
Right.
Is it even 2 weeks?
14th
20
to
yeah.
23rd, 11 days.
And the other
Yeah.
question is there any
11
other
days?
No, 9 days. 14th
Yeah.
to 23rd.
Yeah,
Are there
in 9 days.
Are there any other topics that we need to be informed on, that we're going to, upcoming decisions that we're going to be making, that the workshop could be beneficial for?
Well, there is the conversation that has been had about after-school extracurricular activities at the secondary level, especially the middle school. We've been gathering data on that, but gathering data with the expectation it might be a November conversation at the earliest. That is a conversation that needs to be had before we go into budget, because that could be impactful to budget. There's also the school fees conversation, but once again, that is all stuff that we're working on collecting data in the next couple months to be able to have the discussion shortly before budget time, because those would both impact budget.
So those would be premature, likely?
Yeah, to try to do it next week, yes.
Okay. I feel like even the governance conversation in 9 days would be, I mean, if we haven't read the book, we don't have somebody coming in to give a presentation to talk about modeling, I mean, does it make sense?
And we're down a board member.
We're down a board member.
So I think we'll go ahead and tentatively keep that date on hold and look and see
Okay.
if we're going to have that work session or not.
And I think we can decide that in the next couple of days.
Let me know.
Yep.
Lori, would you mind just verifying with everybody's schedules that they will be in the Valley at that point in time and can attend? Thank you. Our next scheduled regular board meeting is November 11th here at 6. And the morning after, we travel to Boise for the Idaho State School Boards Association annual conference. and that is when we have our early bird session on the superintendent evaluation tool, and it will be an early travel day, so we can get over there to attend that. So,
Very early travel day.
And I will open it up at this time for board highlights.
Well, exciting thing happened at Haley Elementary today. They had a jazz performance because of the jazz festival that's going on, and the kids were very excited about having them come in and do a performance. That was great. It's nice to be in this community, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and have that kind of culture, and having our kids be exposed to that.
And we have great representation historically up at the Jazz Festival with our high school bands, so jazz bands and such. So
Great.
proud of our music.
Maybe. Nikki, do you have anything to share?
Not that I was told.
Okay.
Next time.
Anything off the cuff?
I don't speak much either.
So, all right. And with that, we'll head into the business section of our agenda. With continuing business, the prioritization of financial committee tasks. And we'll go ahead and open that up. Last month, when we formed them, the financial committee, we kind of mentioned that we were interested in them working on a salary schedule for our classified employees, as well as looking into the benefits. Both of these items have significant impact to our budget, as the majority of our budget goes to salaries and benefit packages to our staff. And I will open it up for discussion about these topics or any others that the board might have.
I guess what I see is I would like to see the committee start looking into the classified schedule. Like, apparently we have one, an older one, but that we need to look at that again and possibly come up with a new salary schedule because it's all over the map. At the same time, I would also like to task our superintendent just to get information about the benefits, not really tasking the finance committee, but just to get information from Mike about the benefits, just for my own knowledge and information, and maybe that information to the finance committee, you know, the last 5-10 years.
Okay.
About our benefits.
Are you speaking specifically of health benefits?
Yes, because I think that's what
that is
we've
a
been talking about
major
is health
expense.
benefits. So just about where the health benefits have been historically, and just information about that.
Okay.
So that would be my thoughts.
See that for all staff, classified? Do you want to divide it,
Probably divided.
or it is all the same? So you want the whole?
Probably just everybody then.
Just everybody, whatever you think is best.
The only reason I ask is you mentioned classified salary schedule, so do you want to look at that group of employees, or do you want to look at?
I think look
all
at
of it.
everybody.
All of it.
But the salary schedule would just be for the classified.
Trustee Baker, your thoughts and opinion.
Well, I know that those were the two topics that we had discussed to have the financial committee look at, and I guess I would like to have a recommendation from the superintendent as to prioritizing those. If some are time sensitive, that one should come before the other, as far as to be able to inform decision making.
Well, I think the health benefits, I'm looking at Mr. Chatterton to see if he's agreeing with me or not. I think health benefits is probably the larger impact on our budget, and I want to be clear that we're not looking to cut benefits, but how can we better manage the great benefits we have for our employees, or how can we
To maximize.
get better bang for our buck on those benefits type of thing. So that to me would be priority. I mean, we can put together a memo on the background and trends of where we've been with our health benefits over the last few years. But actually looking at what are options, what are alternatives, what's the pros and cons of all these different options. I mean, that's something that Mr. Chatterton and I can do, but having people who have other lenses look at that, I think is beneficial as well. So to me, that is the most impactful on our budget.
I guess my question would be also feasibility of completion for this year to have to impact our budget this year. Do we feel like that's something that we could give them now and they'd be able to run with it, or is there work that the admin team needs to do in order to be able to provide information?
No, we could pretty much give it to them now.
You could give it to them now?
I mean, we can do some background of where we've been.
But it'd be pretty quick?
Pretty quick, yeah.
Okay. And then we would have an expectation of having a recommendation before budgeting period
Before we go
and
into the
before
budget.
negotiations. Okay.
I guess we're looking for a recommendation from the Finance Committee to give us alternative, to give us options, such as, I don't even know what.
Different
provider
options, different plan options. Yes, that would be able to maximize their dollars, but be able to provide options to staff that would best suit their needs as family members or individuals.
Right, while giving the same benefits.
No,
Potentially.
It could be even how does, I mean, depending on what they find, I mean, it could even be on how staff maximize the benefit dollars we're spending on them. So maybe the way I maximize the benefit dollars for me would be different than the way Sean would maximize them, because we have different family situations, different settings, but the district is giving me, I mean, it could even be that.
So they could come up with like a garden variety, individual, couple, family, smaller than 4,
Or maybe
smaller,
you get
bigger
choices
than 4.
or something. When I was at Hopkins, we got a benefit dollar amount, and we bought with that what we wanted.
Whatever
So
you wanted.
If I wanted to buy something that wasn't a standard thing that they provided, I could reduce my benefits in another area and buy something else. I mean, that's just one wild option.
Okay.
But having people, I'm a school superintendent, not an expert on health benefits, so having other people look at that and help us would be, I think, very beneficial.
For example, one classification that people often forget about is our retirees. They're directly impacted by whatever decisions we make.
I think, go ahead.
Would there be a way to not have these two things be mutually exclusive? I mean, or does it really need to be one? Do they need one task? I guess that's what I'm thinking for the Finance Committee.
In my opinion, strictly my opinion, I don't think we can, I think we need to prioritize which task is more important for the board at this time. I think they can have the classified salaries, start to think about that, start to digest and learn about that, but focus our discussion more about benefits for the entire staff at this point in time, and work that from a learning right into an action after they wrap up the benefits. Because in my mind, trying to draft, create, implement a classified salary schedule is a huge undertaking. There's a lot of different views out there, and I think it's going to take time to vet how best to utilize that. So for me, I like when Carol, I see the benefits as a more clear-cut option first, as well as having on the background the classified salary scale. Trustee Baker.
I would tend to agree, especially in consideration that this is a brand new committee and they're still kind of working out how they're going to do their work, how that work informs the board, and to try to do two things simultaneously, I think would be challenging, and kind of let them get their feet wet, and then we can assess how that would work in the future. But I think picking one or the other.
Okay.
And I would tend to agree. I mean, I would go with Superintendent Holmes's recommendation of doing benefits first.
Okay.
Do we need a motion? to task them?
I don't
I
think
don't-
so.
No?
I don't believe so. I think that I see some of them in attendance here tonight, and we appreciate their attendance. And I think they have some direction on where the board is looking and leaning. So we appreciate your service. With that, we'll go ahead and move on into the new business portion. And we have a comprehensive annual financial report and annual report to the State Department of Education by Mr. Dennis Brown and Mr. Brady Workman. The hot seat, yes.
Only can turn that on and push it down until it turns green, and then you'll be on. Push the button in and hold it until it's green. There you go.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Dennis Brown. I'm a certified public accountant. My firm has recently concluded an audit of the financial statements of the school district for the year ended June 30th of 2014. We've issued our report dated October 1st of 2014, in which we issued an unmodified or a clean opinion. Also, the reports that we issue additionally 2 other reports that are required under governmental auditing standards. We have concluded that the financial statements present fairly the position of the school district, and that no modifications are required in the financial statements. I think you've had an opportunity to read the financial statements. Your finance department here in the school has done an excellent job in preparing those financial statements and analyzing and giving additional summary information that makes them very accurate and very readable. And as auditors, we commend them for that. We also remind the board that you have an ultimate responsibility to oversee the finances of the district. And our inquiries and our tests have indicated that you're doing so, and we commend you on that as well. We would entertain any questions that you might have. Also reminding you that our contact information is on our report page, and we would always enjoy visiting and helping you understand our reports and the financial statements.
All right. We appreciate you coming here tonight and for your presentation, and I'll go ahead and open it up to the board for any questions.
I did read through all of it, all 147 pages.
It's a good read.
That was a good read.
I do have a hard copy.
Can I have a hard copy? It would be easier to find what I'm looking for. Thank you. Did you have any questions?
And I will just make note that this year was the first year that you have done our financial audit.
Yes.
And it is good practice every now and again to switch up that, to get a different set of eyes to go over the auditing, to see if there's anything else that jumps out at a different set of eyes. So
Yes.
Appreciate you being willing to do that.
Absolutely so, yeah.
And I know Trustee Baker is looking for something specific. And
Did you find the reference to
The fund balance?
yes,
Yes.
and the levy
On page
levy
6.
recommendations?
When you get in the last bullet there at the top of the page.
Mhm.
There was a question earlier raised about when will our fund balance be down to about 9%? And of course, that's like having a crystal ball because it depends on how much we overspend our revenues over the next couple of years. But there on that last bullet, it is talking about if we're on the trajectory we are on now, it's probably the 2016-17 fiscal year that we will need. So I don't know if you had any more to add to that? Or?
Yeah, that's, statistically and based on the trends that the spending has been made. Your funding sources are fairly static. Costs will increase. Hopefully, funding will increase. You don't have any control over that. But based on that, you've got another 3 years before you fall, below what you really wanted to accomplish. That was by design, by the way, for the public to understand. It was understood that you had an opportunity to accumulate some fairly decent reserves, and now we're expending those instead of going back for supplemental levies. So it's a good thing to note. It's physically responsible.
Fiscally responsible.
Yeah, can't get that word out.
We appreciate you bringing up that point that Finance Department and staff, the board has really tried to be grateful for the funds that we are given from our public, and that we are trying to spend them for the best purposes for our students, and that we really don't want to be out in front of them asking for more money, because we feel extremely grateful for what we do give. So.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? All right.
Okay, don't hesitate to call.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the strategic planning process by Dr. Holmes.
Okay, this is exciting. I hope you guys are as excited as I am. The listening tour that I have been conducting since I arrived in July is quickly coming to an end, and I will be reporting to the board in November what I have learned from my listening tour, as well as a review of the data of the school district. And so then the next steps would be that's kind of like a state of the district. And so the next steps would be, okay, so where do we want to go next? Our current strategic plan was developed in 2007 and 2008, and a lot of it has been accomplished. In fact, if you look at the strategic planning process proposal that you have, the second page lists some of the major accomplishments. And when I was looking at this earlier, I thought, we really should have thrown a party to celebrate the things that have been accomplished in the district from that. The first one there is the 21st Century Learner and Educator Profiles, and right behind Trustee Graves, you'll see that we talk about that a lot and use that as a focus as we are trying to move forward in helping our students be ready for uncertain futures. We don't know what it's going to happen. In fact, there was an article in yesterday's Washington Post that talked about how do you help kids prepare for the future when Surrey is smarter than they are. And it's just because, every facts, little discrete pieces of knowledge you can find. You Google it, you ask Surrey, you do something. So how do you help kids learn how to use those things to be the problem solvers, creative thinkers, and innovators? And so that profile has been developed as a part of this last plan. Now, how do we get that to accomplish? That might be part of the next plan. We'll see. But you'll see there a list of some wonderful things that we've accomplished. Another thing that as a sneak peek preview on what I'll share with you next month regarding the listening tour is this valley is extremely proud of their facilities. And that was a large accomplishment in this last strategic plan. So now that we kind of know after that state of the schools conversation in November where we are, the question is, where do we want to go next, and why is it important to strategic plan? And strategic planning gives us a united focus. It helps guide us in how we allocate resources of money, time, people, all those different things that we're given. We can only do limited number of things with them. So what do we focus our largest amount of energy on? And so at that time, my proposal is that we begin revising or rewriting a new strategic plan. This proposal, hopefully, when the community is looking at it, it will be very clear that the board is the ultimate decision makers. And so when it comes to setting a mission, a vision, our core values around education, goals, strategies, everything keeps coming back to the board for approval. And so either approval, modification, sending it back to the committee, telling them to start over, whatever would be the board's purview. And they are the ultimate decision makers. The rest of us, the community, the staff, we're all players in this, and we all have a voice in this. But it is ultimately the board that makes the decision. So the proposal says that the board would create a steering committee to do some of the heavy lifting and the writing. The steering committee would engage in multiple community meetings to gather input from the community multiple times, rather than trying to have it at one big location, having it at different places throughout the county. So we might have a community meeting up in the Ketchum area, then we might have one here in the Haley area, and then we might have one out in Cary. And all three of those community meetings would be trying to tease out what are common values across our county in regards to education. Then from those community meetings, the themes that we derive from those would go to the public again, and this time in a way in which all members of the public can respond. So it might be an online survey or something to that effect. And the reason we would do that is we want to, first of all, create forced choice. So if you're responding to the survey, you would have to respond to what is your top choices. That way we start to tease things out so we can figure out our priorities. And it also gives every voice in the county an opportunity. So it's not the loudest voices or the voices who were able to attend that night. It is all voices have equal opportunity to be heard through those kinds of surveys or some kinds of those forced choice type of devices we can use. So the first round, the steering committee would be gathering information on what mission, vision, and common goal or common values. They would write that up, take the evidence with them, take it back to the board, and the board would approve or not. Then we'd go back to the community, have more conversations, and set our goals. The proposal envisions having approximately 3 goals, which is much less than our last strategic plan. That's not to say that if reading isn't a goal, that we're going to stop teaching reading. That means we think we're doing okay in reading and we're going to keep moving on the way we are, but we're not doing so well in science or whatever was identified as a goal, and we really want to put a lot of energy into that area and trying to get it established as well as reading or whatever the example might be. Once again, the community meetings throughout the county, and once again, some kind of device where we are getting all voices heard and people are having to make forced choices. So we're narrowing things down. So we're not coming back to the board with here's 100 things we want to do type of thing. The board would approve the goals or modify them at their purview. And then at that time, we would have subcommittees appointed. Steering committee members would split up and join subcommittees, and we would add additional members to the subcommittees. And if you look at the proposal on who would be the committee members, you will notice that the subcommittees are teacher-heavy. That's very intentional, because when we get down to the subcommittees, we would be selecting the strategies and writing the action steps for achieving those goals. And 90% of the cases, I'm betting that it will be actually happening in classrooms. So we need the teacher voice there. So they would be the largest contingency on those subcommittees. Once again, community meetings to give feedback and input into that using some kinds of devices such as surveys or response devices or something so that we're hearing every voice. Yes?
When you talk about subcommittees, 16 to 20 members, is that on each subcommittee?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And how would you define what the subcommittees are?
Doing.
Yeah.
If we set 3 goals, for example,
Each
we would have 3
take a task.
subcommittees.
Okay,
one for each goal. And like I said, they'd be heavily populated with teachers so that they're giving us feedback on, yes, that's going to work in the classroom, no, that's not, or here's what we need to make that work in the classroom type of thing, because they're the ones that are actually probably going to do most of the heavy lifting on that. Once again, that would come back then to the board for their approval, and hopefully we would be approving that in June, which would be ready for next school year. Along the way, we're going to try to be making some guesses as we identify goals. We don't know what the strategies are yet, but we know the goals are these areas, so how do we allocate budget monies for whatever the strategies end up being in that area, because we're trying to do a budget at the same time that we're trying to develop a strategic plan. So how do we move forward with that? So that's kind of the idea in a nutshell. Oh, I guess there's one more thing I wanted to point out, and that is at the very end of the plan, there are 2 rubrics there that would help us with solutions, selecting solutions. And we actually tried these out the other day in our district leadership team meeting. We tried out the solution fit rubric as we were working on our district improvement plan that was required by the state. And so just some things to think about when we're looking at solutions and how well do they match to the identified goal and root causes. And then the second one is if we're looking at things that especially programs that might be investing in a provider or something. What is the research behind those? And is there strong evidence? Because we want to make the best bet with our resources of time and energy and dollars. And so that helps us tease out sometimes, are we looking at just a fad, or are we looking at something that has evidence behind it? So this is presented tonight just for to start the public discussion. And hopefully at the next board meeting, or at least by December, the board can make a decision on what they would like to tweak on this, if they want to throw it all out, start all over, how you want to move forward with strategic planning so we can begin engaging the community and helping us with that. Questions?
I don't have a question, but can you get a hard copy like that for me?
Of the presentation.
Oh,
you want it right now?
Yep, that I can bring home. Perfect. I mean, I looked at it, it's so much easier.
We could maybe go photocopy that.
Perfect. We can get another one. Just to, I read through it but it's so much easier to look at that. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you.
And I'm guessing that our communications director will be putting that up in a more prominent place, so you don't have to dig through the board agenda to find it, so the public can also be looking at the.
I really appreciate, especially how specific to the roles and responsibilities of each of the participants, community, staff, board. It's a huge undertaking. We've been extremely fortunate to accomplish what we have on our current strategic plan. It's really been a guiding document in our district. And it's time to take a look at it and continue to push ourselves to strive to do better.
I do appreciate the goal of reducing the number of goals as we narrow our focus to affect change in a more efficient way, as opposed to having a more shotgun approach. So I think that that's a direct response to what our community has said, what our staff and teachers have said, and also what the board has wanted to do. So
I think it goes to that staff feedback that they're not quite sure what the vision is of the leadership, because it's too broad.
Yep.
Chairman Bennion, if you're done discussing strategic planning process, point of order, so to speak, I neglected to write on the agenda that the board needs to take action on the comprehensive annual financial report, and which is the annual report to the State Department of Education. And we do need to do that in addition to the financial summary statement, which comes down later.
Okay. Should we just do
But
that?
that is just for the publishing part. So I apologize for that. So if we could go back to that before we move forward and take care of that action.
Should we go back, or should we wait and do it when we do the rest of the consent agenda and add it to the consent agenda?
Either way.
Yeah, I would add it at the end when you're taking action.
Okay.
All right. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to Mr. John Blackman for revision of school district policies that were up for review. We have quite a few, and I'll let Mr. Blackman go through them.
Yes, some of these are logistical. The reasoning behind each one of the changes. Some of them are legislative in nature, and some of them are actually more district involved with the actual policy committee making recommendations to the board. So the first one that we have is the F&M auto injectors. So due to Idaho Code, Section 33520A, schools can now maintain a stock supply of generic epinephrine auto injectors in our schools. The recommendation from our nurses is that we do that. If you choose to do that, then the state requires that you have this policy in your policy manual. So that is the impetus behind this. This is given to us by Eberhardt and Mackey, which are the legal consultants to the state. So this is the actual policy that the state requires that you have.
So was this originally written by the state and then reviewed by our attorneys? Did our attorneys write this policy?
It was written by the State Department and then given to Eberhardt and Mackey to reformat and write.
Okay.
And then it's put out in the update to all public schools.
Okay. Thank you.
Student data and privacy and security, again, is due to Idaho legislation. That was passed in the last legislative session. It was Senate Bill 1372, and it refers to Section 33133 of the Idaho Code. They've developed a model policy for all school districts and public charter schools that governs data collection, access, security, and use of student personal data. So this is to be in compliance with FERPA regulations. And again, this is required by the state of Idaho. This has nothing to do with our acceptable use agreements or our policy guiding use of social media and telephones and those kind of things. This is just student data that we house in Skyward.
And just as a clarifying point, all of these policies have been through the policy committee.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
They all went through the policy committee. Nobody had any comment on these, but at this point in time, due to the fact that we have not adopted the new policy on policy yet,
yes,
then these all went through the policy committee.
Yes.
This is the procedures and operations for formulation, revision, and adoption of policy. This is what could change that process, and we've talked about some of these legislative updates not having to go through the whole committee process if they're mandated by legislation and don't really involve changing any of our existing policies in their scope and sequence or in their intent. So this would, in this policy, as part of it, one of the recommendations was to separate those type of policy changes from our existing policies that do require, the board's decisions, because it may change the intent of a policy or change a procedure within a policy. Also, as part of this policy revision, it was recommended that we combine both 203.1 and 203.2 into one policy, because one was about 2 sentences long and the other one was about the revision of policy. So it made sense to combine the two of them into one policy so we don't have so much redundancy within the policy manual, and put them under adoptions, formulations, and revisions of policy.
Trustee Baker.
I was on the policy committee when we discussed this, and so I just want to clarify something. When we talked at length regarding the legally referenced policies and the clerical revisions policy regarding what if somebody wants to say it's legally revised or it's a clerical and it skips the policy committee. What would happen if it's one of a gray area type of thing? And so there's language that's specifically in here that even if it's classified as a legal revision or a clerical revision, all of the trustees individually get that information and showing the changes, as well as the entire policy committee. And at that time, any individual on the policy committee can make a recommendation to the board that we not take action on it and we send it to policy committee. So it would eliminate that ability for anything that's considered gray of kind of slipping past the policy committee. They can make that recommendation and then it would still be the board's decision on whether or not we wanted to send it back to policy committee or just let it stay under that category to come directly to us without review. And so that language is in there, but I just wanted to point that out because there was a lot of discussion about that. And we worked really hard to make sure that we didn't handcuff administration's ability to do their job, especially efficiently and effectively in meeting timelines. I know some of them actually have fines associated with them if we don't meet those timelines. And so we wanted to allow for that streamlined process, but yet still preserve the function of why we established that committee as an advisory to the board.
Okay. Thank you for the clarifying.
And there is language in there for another touch, like
right.
Chairman, or Trustee Baker said, for the policy committee to put their eyes on it, even if it is an administrative revision, they still get the opportunity to see it and then mention to the board whether they think it should go before the policy committee.
Yeah.
And then the board can make that decision.
Yes, correct.
Then there was also the formulation within this policy, so 303.1 and 303.2 would combine, and then on 303.2 would then become the formulation and revision of the policy committee to review policy. So this would be the makeup of the policy committee in the review, revision, and adoptions, recommendations to the board. So this would be the advisory committee to the board, how it operates, how it's made up. It follows, some of the guidelines that were set forth in the financial committee. So this is an advisory committee to the board, and how policy runs through that committee.
Are there any questions, comments about the policy committee?
Well, just like John made reference to, we did look at the language that was established and already went through policy committee and approved by the board with the finance committee, and tried to take anything that was relevant to have parallels in what those committees, how they're comprised and how they function, so that they would all be operating similarly. The other thing that I'd just like to mention is one of the things that was discussed in developing this policy was, how does that policy committee communicate its information to the board? And we talked about what we call the cover sheet, or maybe a board executive summary. And Liz Richards has started working on that document, and Catherine and I as well, to be able to have that information presented to us. And we'll be looking at that hopefully for the next month to talk about what that would look like. So that when the board gets the revised policy, it just summarizes exactly what happened, who was involved with it, if there were any ad hoc members that were added that were involved in that recommendation that's coming from that committee, that sort of information. So I'm very excited to have that, I think, as a good tool for the board to use when evaluating policy.
I think that will be helpful. It will be some sort of report given to us about a memo about the discussion that happens in this policy review committee.
Right.
And what the discussions were, so we know the rationale behind some of the decisions, some of the policies that come to us. The other thing that I would like to bring up, we did receive in our packets, we received just one comment from Trustee Schwertel about this policy committee, and the only comment that she had is she would like it to be called the Policy Review Committee instead of the Policy Committee. Just a semantics change, so I'm just bringing that up for discussion.
Where she's not able to join us,
No, I didn't get
does anybody know the background on why that changes has been requested?
I believe that she just felt that it was a better description of what the committee does, that the committee reviews policy.
My only comment to that would be is sometimes they're the first go-around of a new policy. I mean, when we established the wellness policy, that wasn't something that we had to begin with. It was created in committee. And so when you say it's a review, I don't know. Just could that be confusing?
I take that point, and to me, I think one of our goals is to streamline, simplify, and we have existing language in the financial committee. It's not the financial review committee. In essence, that's what they're doing, is assisting us in reviewing our financial statements and giving advice. So inherently, I tend to say that it already says that without adding that review, and it streamlines and keeps constant. Our calendar committee, our wellness committee, our financial committee, and it would keep everything consistent.
Yeah. I think I could go either way. I think policy review committee, because you're still reviewing policy, even if you're creating a policy, you're still reviewing it. So it's more, it defines it more, but I also take your point that you've got policy committee Finance Committee, Wellness Committee, Calendar Committee, that they're all
Consistent.
So
And luckily for us, this is up for discussion only.
yeah, this is
And
our
so,
first touch.
Hopefully
So-
Trustee Schwartle
month.
will be here and
Yeah, in
will
a
be able
month.
to explain her reasoning and have that discussion in the November meeting.
Okay.
One other comment about the policy committee policy. One of the things that we discussed in that is the policy committee is they make recommendations. And I think one of the things that has been a hang-up in the past is the committee's thought process of all having to agree before they send something to the board. And since they are not a decision-making committee, they are a recommendation committee, one of the things that summary memo would include would be, if it's not a majority, that they would be able to state, this is what the non-majority felt, or the abstention, and so that would help inform the board. And so I think that that's something important to communicate to all of our committees, is that it's not their role to be making a final decision and have to be unanimous. Their role would really be to be making recommendations. And there might be more than one for the board's consideration. This was the majority, this is an alternative, these are things we considered, now it's your decision. And so that was really good conversation that came out of that committee.
Excellent.
And I just wanted to share that with those who were not involved.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Mr. Blackman.
The Financial Committee, this one came back to us. There was the board had kind of written it, and so there was just a few changes that you guys had suggested at the last board meeting. And so the recommendation is to accept as written.
So this would be our second touch on this.
Yep. You guys have already been through that and discussed
Multiple
it
times.
before.
Okay.
So this is the organizational flow chart, which was a recommendation coming forward from the new superintendent. In looking, this had not been updated in quite a while, and so the thought process was to look at this and reorganize it to follow more and be more consistent with our current structure. So there were a couple recommendations that came out of that. First off, there's a policy committee there, which is interesting that it's the only committee on the list. So the recommendation was to remove that from the flow chart.
On the first one?
Yeah.
Back up, okay.
No,
No,
that was what you had
the
up
one you're
there.
on. The one you're on. This is the new flow chart.
Under the assistant
We're looking at the
super.
old one.
okay.
But, yeah, so under the assistant superintendent, there's a policy committee, which I sit on, but there's a lot of committees. So, it didn't make sense that, there were a lot that are not listed there, multiple committees, some of which you just mentioned. So it didn't make sense that just this one showed up under my supervision, and yet we have committees all over the place under different people. So I don't know. So the recommendation was to remove that from the flow chart. Recommendation to define titles and programs that report to Student Services Director, i.e. School psychologists, special education programs like Title I, and then recommend to approve as written, as listed.
Just to clarify, is this the revised new one that you're this is the old one, right?
That's the old one. That was the
Okay,
draft.
so the new one is there.
No,
That's
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 the
the
old
old. Can we go to the new one? That's
The recommendations off of this were
Okay.
to remove the policy committee and to define under the Student Services Director, where you can see, if you follow the flow chart down to Student Services over there all the way to the right, next to the Assistant Superintendent, what falls under that purview, i.e. Title I programming, school psychologists, and special education programming. Because there are, what do I want to say, supervisory roles that fall under that person.
okay.
I do appreciate how you've broken it out as far as really who we are as the Board of Trustees are over, as far as superintendent, the clerk, and the treasurer for the district. As far as that's our responsibilities. And so, like it or not, I guess we get to start doing more evaluations than just the superintendent.
Lori's on the hot seat now.
I'll make sure you get these notes on the recommendations of the committee.
Okay, appreciate that.
And lastly was the reduction of force. This was brought forward through an MOU between the Blaine County School District and the BCEA for the 13-14 negotiated agreement, which stated a district committee will convene to review language and update the RIF policy. The policy will be brought before the board. There was legislation put in the Luna laws that you couldn't use seniority as one of the categories in the RIF policy, and then that was repealed, and then the legislature came forward and said that you can use it as a factor. It cannot be the entire RIF policy, but it can be one weighted piece of that. So we went back with the original RIF committee and the BCA and went back through the whole policy that we had rewritten the year before, went back through the rubric, and so we have rewritten both the policy to make sure that it is acceptable to the BCEA and how it's written and the factors, and you can see some of the changes there, as well as the rubric. There were some changes on the rubric as well regarding the weighting factors. So we changed some date information as far as notification to employees. We lengthened that from 5 to 10, but this has all the changes within it.
Can you define what an MOU is?
An MOU is a memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
So basically it's an agreement that we make at negotiations time to go look at things like this with the union. Mm-hmm. So we partner with them, and basically we promise them that we will do that with them, mm-hmm. and that they will be at the table.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate the good work and relationship we have with the Education Association and for their involvement and for their care in protecting our teachers. So thank you for the combined work of the policy committee.
I'd really like to thank
Blaine County
Tringy and Marit and for all the great work that they put towards this, and they did a lot of research and a lot of looking at that, and I really appreciate all the work they put into it, and it was a pleasure to work with them.
All right. I believe that completes all of the policies up for review. Are there any questions or comments from the board? All right. Thank you, Mr. Blackman, for your detailed analysis. And now, I apologize, everyone, it's taken so long. It's, like I said, we've been trying to change the agenda to give people the opportunity to comment on what's gone on ahead of time. But we'll move into the public comment portion of the meeting. And we have one, as far as I know, request for public comment, and that is Ms. Shar Roth. If you wouldn't please take the podium.
I'm going to stand here because this is for everyone here.
Could you
Okay,
please
would
get a
you mind
microphone?
using the microphone, though? Is that okay? Thank you so much.
Identify yourself.
Nikki, it's great to see you here, to have your energy. We love the youth. And I thought it was so wonderful to have the presentation of the Bellevue kids and teachers with connections, because that's what I wanted to say to all of you tonight, is the connections that we have. And I am so grateful for the board and all of your hard work and service to excellence in education, to teachers, to the students, to our community. Thank you so much. You are courageous souls. And welcome, Dr. Holmes. I applaud your listening tour. I'm hearing really good things. And I'm sure you know by now what an awesome school district you are, working with top-notch, cutting-edge everything. So welcome. You know, I had the opportunity to appreciate the colleagues, my friends at Hemingway. And the joy and the love that I felt in the atmosphere of safety and security with the parents, the students, my colleagues, Dawn, Hazley. It was truly so fulfilling for me as a teacher for 25 years here in this district. And Dawn's leadership and integrity and trust really helped me to become a better teacher. And I was not able to be here. I was in and out caring for my mother this fall and traveling, so I wasn't here to receive my 25-year gift and the chamber bucks. And I was sitting down to write a thank you, and I thought, I have to be here in person to thank you all so much, because truly we are a team, and it's our connections that make us such an incredible community. You know, from administration to classified staff to certified staff, the professionalism, respect, and support that I have felt, kindness, has really been an amazing experience for me personally. So I totally am privileged and honored to be here to say thank you. As I transition into this renewal, I don't call it retirement, I'm calling it renewal. It's definitely been a process for me, letting go of a career that I love. And I've had my ups and downs and fear, and it's all come up. And I mainly feel gratitude and blessed that I was in a profession that I loved so much. And whether it was this year or next year or the following year, I'd have to let go. And so I'm learning to let go. And yet just as we encourage our students to be involved, like in the WOW project and giving to nonprofits and giving back to our community, I choose to do that. And I will be involved and stay, even though I'm not in the mainstream anymore, I'm choosing to stay in stream as a community volunteer and being back in the classrooms. And I'm just so grateful that we have such an awesome community to do that. And I wanted to say that Maya Angelou was an inspiration for me. And she said that people will forget what you said and people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And thank you for knowing that we are all a team. Thank you for the connectedness and for being my family.
Appreciate that, Ms. That's right. We're done. Ms. Kaufman, are there any other public comments?
No, I'm kind of...
Okay. I would like to go ahead and open it up to the audience if there's any who would like to make a comment. Please step up.
Do I have a time limit or anything? Oh,
3 minutes.
Thanks.
And if you would, please, make sure you fill out a form and get that to Ms. Kaufman for the minutes.
I will. All right.
Thank you so much.
My name is Darlene Dyer, and I recently retired from the high school. I was teaching English. And I have one little accolade and then one little other thing I want to say in 3 minutes. And first of all, I want to thank Dr. Holmes. I can't tell you how I felt when she sort of came to me after she was hired. I mean, she didn't come to me. She came to all of us through email, but she came in a poem. And I can't think of any administrator, superintendent who's ever shared a poem with me about, what it means. And so that touched me personally. Secondly, I was fortunate enough to be invited to the address of the whole district in August. I was part of the retiree corps. And once again, I felt personally validated by your words, and I don't think I've ever heard a superintendent speak so optimistically, positively about our children and what's in store for teachers. Almost makes me sad, not quite, little, when I'm retiring. And thirdly, I really appreciate the listening tour that you were doing and the small group of retired teachers that were able to hear their concerns. One of my concerns, though I have retired from teaching, I have not retired from education. And I know the board is very aware of the tiered certification that is, being stirred up right now by the committee that was appointed from the State Board of Education. I'd like for you to look critically at this tiered licensure because it has a couple of real problems for us. And one is at that very first level that teachers have a 3-year kind of residency, non-renewable certificate. And that's a question in itself, offering Idaho new teachers non-renewable contracts when they can get something else in a nearby state doesn't make sense. Also, one of the great highlights of my career that Blaine County School District helped facilitate was my achieving a national board certification. And I can't thank you enough for all the opportunities professionally that credential afforded me. However, in the tiered licensure, there is no allotment for master's degrees, NBCTs, none of that. And so that's a critical point with me. The last thing is that it's tied to evaluation. And I know that everyone in here, most everyone in here, has looked at the evaluations that the teachers filled out at the different schools. And I was a part of that last year. And for renewal or movement on this tier, your whole credential to be tied to principal's evaluation when that principal does not, engender trust and respect and so forth, it's really a serious edge for, teachers to contend with. So I'd like for you to kind of, keep those things in mind. If you're interested in making a comment, there is a comment period to the State Board that is open until October 21st. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. See, certainly, if you fill out a card.
Hi, Marie Wolfram, Blaine County Education Association. I just want to say, Kathy Baker, thank you for defining what an MOU is, because I also want to bring to the board's attention that there is an MOU with specifics about creating an insurance committee that was arranged at the negotiations last year. So I know you've tasked the finance committee with looking at insurance, so hopefully that'll make that other committee shorter so that we don't have to spend quite as much time at it, but it is an important promise that the board made to the teachers and the staff of this district to look at that insurance also through an insurance committee. And it very clearly spells out in the MOU who's supposed to be on that committee as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. All right.
Can I just make a comment?
We typically don't make comments.
Yeah, we'll
about
do it
public
later.
comment.
We can do it later.
Okay.
Just
All right, we'll go ahead and move into our decision portion of the agenda. And do I hear a motion to accept? Actually, we have the consent agenda before any motions. We have the consideration of minutes for the regular September meeting, September 9th, 2014, special meeting of the board, October 6th, 2014, student board liaison training workshop, October 8th, 2014. We have the acceptance of the monthly financial report, payment of bills, consideration of student teaching contract for Rachel Ziegler, and ID, SPED, Exceptional Child Generalist K-12 and Elementary K-8 placement under the direction of Amy Savageau. Consideration of alternative graduation plans for 19 Blaine County School District students. Application for study travel by student group with Joel Zellers. Application for study travel by student group Joyce Pratt. application for study travel by student group Kevin Lupton, and application for study travel by student group Mr. Rob Ditch and Jorge Pujero, as well as the permission to publish an annual financial statement summary and the consideration of personnel entering and exiting.
I do have that list.
Would you please, Mike?
Under certified professional staff recommending for hire, we have Andrew Christ, full-time math teacher, grades 9 through 12 at Wood River High School. Under classified staff recommending for hire, we have Bonnie Strader, paraprofessional at Wood River Middle School. Jean-Marie Shaw, special education paraprofessional at Bellevue Elementary School. And Adriana Rodriguez, ENL paraprofessional at Wood River High School.
Thank you very much. Do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda as read?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I actually, and I think we have Jorge here, is that right? A question about his application for the trip to Spain. And it's, are you the, oh, Robert, you're there too. I didn't see you there. The sole chaperone on that? I was a little bit confused on that point.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Jorge, who accompanies the students for the duration of the trip. Fritz Peters is also going to be joining them midway through the trip. However, Jorge will be the one who's doing the accompaniment. And the nature of this trip is slightly different in that it's an immersion program. The students will be staying with host families and doing an embedded, essentially an embedded trip where they're going to be having unique experiences living with host families in the country. So it's not your classic field trip where you're hauling kids around and staying in hotels and that sort of thing.
Right. So what's that timeline? So you arrive there, and then do they go to the families? Because I just saw that there was the 8-to-1 ratio compared to our 5-to-1 ratio.
Right. When they arrive, and they will be picked up at the airport and go to their families at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's an exchange trip, yes.
Okay. Okay, so they go to their families right away, and then there was an environmental camp. Do they go, is that at the end after they're staying with their families, and then they go to the camp? And is that the part that Fritz will be there as well? Or how does that work?
During the camp, our students will be attending a 4-day camp in an amazing reserve. And they will be going with Spaniard students. So this is not just a specific camp for our students, but it's a camp that the Spaniard students also attend. So they will be regular students in Spain. And so as part of their regular field trip to this environmental camp, our students, along with some Spaniard students, will attend this camp along with the Spaniard teachers, chaperones, that always attend that camp. So our student will be part of the Spaniard education system. And so they have an amazing opportunity to go to Avila and attend this 4-day camp where they will stay with the chaperones and other students, as well as the director of the camp. And there they will have different activities for 4 days and then return back to their host families and be part of the, the immersion experience that they will have.
And Jorge's job will be primarily to facilitate the experience for the students on the ground. And so he's going to be there the entire time, available to our students to work through any logistics and things that may arise along the trip.
Okay. So this difference in ratio, because it's an exchange program, is that what I'm hearing, that the ratio can be increased? Okay. And then Mr. Peters will be there halfway through the trip. So it's really the plane trip, the traveling to the location.
I must say, Jorge, I'm a little disappointed I didn't get the invite to return to Spain, so just throwing that out there.
You're welcome to come anytime. But to answer your question, the camp will take place the second week, so this is a 3-week trip. And the third week, they will have what they call, the Spaniard education calls it the Easter week, which is our spring break. And so the third week, they will be traveling with their host family and be part of the host family, and whatever arrangements they had and travels they had, they will take our students to different activities.
To see the culture.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion?
No.
Nikki, you're not an official voting member, but would you like to give a recommendation? As far as, do you approve?
For the mini foreign exchange for the middle school.
Oh, I think it's a good idea. I think it's awesome.
Okay, great.
All right. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 3-0. We also have the consideration of surplus district equipment, transportation vehicles, and miscellaneous items for clearance. Mr. Howard Royal is going to speak to us briefly.
So I did come to the board last month, provided some information. This month I did supply a list of items that are no longer utilized by the district. A lot of these items have been in storage for 10 years or more. I also included a list of Rex's surplus items, and he can speak to those, I think, if you have any questions. But these are items that we would like to dispose of, surplus items, and through an online auction, which a lot of school districts are taking advantage of now. You have a lot wider audience, you get a better price for the equipment.
Do I hear a motion to accept the sale of surplus district equipment via the online auction as dictated?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Nikki, do you have a recommendation?
Do pass.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Permission granted to auction off surplus equipment. And item C, the declaration of vacancy. As many of you know, Trustee Roberts wrote a letter to the board declaring or offering his resignation to the board effective immediately back in September. Idaho Code dictates that the board officially declares a vacancy. We would like to thank Trustee Roberts for his service on the board and wish him the best in his future endeavors. Do I hear a motion to accept the declaration of vacancy for the trustee zone 4 at the regular board meeting on October 14th, 2014?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The vacancy has officially been declared, and I'm going to go over the appointment timeline briefly. I worked with, I'd like to thank Lori Kaufman for her assistance and Ms. Crocker for her assistance as well as getting this timeline out and in the future advertising that we're going to be doing. But basically, Idaho Code dictates that there's 90 days where that we have to fill the vacancy in the zone, and then an additional 30 days if that vacancy is not filled within the zone. That 90-day period of time would put us roughly January 14th. My fear is that over the Christmas holidays, we would lose traction, lose momentum. So the timeline that we have come up with is on the 24th of October, a legal notice, press release, and display ad will be sent to the Mountain Express and Weekly Sun for publication on October 29th, November 5th, and November 12th editions. Applicant letters of interest are due to Ms. Kaufman by Friday, November 21st at 3 p.m. Then the first week of December, December 4th, we would have a special meeting for the Zone 4 appointment to take place, where we would interview and appoint a board member in hopes that we would be able to swear in the new board member at the December 9th regular board meeting. That way we could try and push it. I think with the publication that we've currently had, I'm hoping there's some excitement out there in Zone 4 for filling that vacancy, and that we will have members of that zone step forward and apply to join us on the board. There's not much in life more fulfilling than helping our students, helping our kids. So it is my anticipation that we'll get that filled and become a full quorum before the Christmas break and Christmas holidays. So I'm looking forward to that. So that is kind of the timeline that we have presented. Is there any questions or comments from the board?
Nope.
All right. I believe that Ms. Kaufman.
We'll just have to go back with that other motion, action. You have it in front.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the annual financial audit and reporting to the state?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes. The next item is items the board deems necessary. Is there anything that the board has come up with that we failed to plan ahead for the agenda?
Well, this is just something to bring up, and I guess it's to Marit's comment about the MOU, that there was supposed to be a committee formed about the benefits. So I think that warrants some further discussion between BCA and staff for right now.
Yeah, I appreciate your comment. Catherine had made a note about that earlier in the meeting, so we were already on our radar that needed to be addressed, and had intended to speak with Superintendent Holmes about how that would look, whether the Finance Committee would look at it and then the BCA, or vice versa, or some combination thereof.
Or if it's a combination of
the
committees.
Ad hoc members, that sort of thing, and looking for a discussion with you about that, or recommendation from you coming out.
Well, I think the conversation needs to be had with BCEA about whether they would like to engage with the Finance Committee on that, or if they would like to review the recommendations, because I'm assuming, and this is maybe a false assumption, but I'm assuming there would be multiple scenarios coming out of that committee.
And there is
depends on how much time you want to spend in committee meetings. You know.
And there is representation of BCEA on the Finance Committee also.
Beth Andrews.
So that would be kind of the transition there.
Right. And our agreement to discuss benefits with them is because of the because of the certified agreement. And this would be for all employees. So.
Okay. Thank Thank you very much. And as far as the meeting summation, we've had some excellent presentations. I'd like to thank Bellevue for coming and presenting to us and showing how we all lift and build upon each other. As far as for our next meeting, we have the 100-day plan, as well as a continuation of the discussion on the strategic plan, planning process, as well as we will be moving the policy drafts into the decision-making portion of the meeting, as well as starting to look at more of the district goals that we have district-wide, and a quick update on where we stand before we head to the Idaho State School Boards Association conference the next morning. Is there anything else that the board might see as potential discussions for the regular November meeting?
Okay. I have one more thing. And this is a thought that in our past agendas we had the comment period in the beginning and we had one at the very end. And I'm wondering if we add another comment period just at the beginning. I like where the second one is because it can be on things that we've discussed, but I wonder if we add one in for people like Shar and Darlene that came that may have wanted to come make a more general comment. So it's just something to discuss. Yeah, and not happy. Although I appreciate you that you're still here. So it's just a thought that we add another comment period in. I like the one where we have it, but if we have another one in the beginning. So
I can see the benefits of having that. So thank you for bringing that up. Is there anything else? With that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. That was a fast